Historically, kitchen remodeling has provided more return on investment than any other home remodeling project. Even in recent years, when the housing market has lost some of its luster and people are a little reluctant to invest in remodeling, kitchen renovations have held their value. In fact, according to the National Association of Realtors, only 2 interior projects were listed in the top 10 remodeling projects, and both were kitchen renovations. Installing new cabinets and countertops is like giving a kitchen a facelift. These projects brighten the kitchen and can make it more functional too. The fact that they hold their value so well is just icing on the cake. The Complete Guide to Kitchens and this DVD present simple information that can help you get the most for your remodeling dollar. The projects shown in this DVD show you how to install basic cabinets and several styles of countertops. They feature the types of cabinets and countertop materials found in home centers everywhere. We'll start by showing you the tools and supplies you'll need for installing cabinets and countertops. Then, we'll dive right into projects. We'll show you how to install wall cabinets and base cabinets. You'll see how easy it is to install a post-form laminate countertop, and then how to install a granite countertop if you prefer tile or stone. We'll demonstrate sink and faucet installation. We'll also go through the installation of a food disposer, then cool off by hooking up a built-in ice maker. This DVD also includes a bonus section, The Complete Guide to Kitchens, in electronic form. When planning your kitchen remodeling project, there are many options to choose from, both in terms of style and materials. For the most part, the tools you'll need to install kitchen cabinets and countertops are simple and inexpensive. You probably already own many of them. Kitchen cabinets are available from home centers in a surprising variety of styles and finishes. You can purchase stock cabinets or order semi-custom cabinets to install yourself. Specialty features and add-ons like pull-out drawers, pull-down or pull-out shelves, and even Lazy Susans are also available. Laminate is by far the least expensive countertop surface. Home centers offer post-form laminate countertops in a limited number of styles and colors, although most also give you the option of ordering from a wide range of colors and edge treatments. Granite countertops are one of the most popular trends in kitchen design these days. Granite slabs can be very expensive and difficult to install. Granite tile is less expensive and simple to install. Sinks are available in many materials, shapes, and sizes, but stainless steel is by far the most popular. Stainless steel sinks are manufactured in gauges from 22 to 16. The lower the gauge, the thicker the material. Home centers stock faucets in dozens of styles and materials. Specialty stores offer an even greater selection. With all the necessary tools and materials in hand, you'll be ready to get to work. At one time, installing kitchen cabinets required skills that few homeowners possessed. Today, modern tools make it possible for almost anyone to install simple cabinet configurations. You need a standard level to check the cabinets for plumb, and you can use it to establish reference lines. You'll also need a tape measure. Hand screw clamps are used to hold adjoining cabinets in place while you install them. Other necessary tools include a hammer, a jigsaw, a portable drill, and a counterbore bit. You'll also need a freestanding ladder. Before you can hang wall cabinets, you need to ensure that the wall you'll be hanging them on is flat and plumb. We're hanging our cabinets on a new wall with tongue and groove pine. It's as flat as a wall gets. Finally, you'll need fasteners. For our project, we're using the washer head cabinet screws provided with the cabinets for attaching the cabinets to the wall. To join the cabinet faces together, we're using Torx head hardened flathead wood screws designed for installation with a power tool. If you use regular wood screws, You should install them with a screwdriver to prevent stripping of the head. You'll also need a matching counterbore bit for the screws being used to join the cabinets together. Of course, you'll also need cabinets. If the cabinets bridge a window or other opening, you may want a wood valance. Locate the wall studs and mark each stud location. Now you're ready to establish a reference line for the top of the cabinets. First, put a level on a long, straight 2x4 and move the board across the floor to see if the floor is level. Mark the wall at the high point in the floor. From this high point, measure to the desired height of the top of the cabinets. This measurement will vary depending on the size of the cabinets being installed. You should allow for 18 inches between the countertop surface and the bottom of the wall cabinets. Mark a second line for the bottom of the cabinets. Position long, straight boards, at least 1x3 dimension lumber, with the top edges flush against the lower reference line. Attach the bores to the wall using long nails or screws that can be easily removed later. Make sure the boards are level as you go. This temporary ledger will be used to help hold the cabinets in place while we're installing them. Transfer the stud marks to these temporary ledger boards. Set the wall cabinets side by side and check to be sure the doors do not interfere with each other. Using a cordless drill or screwdriver, remove the doors from the cabinets and set them aside. Make sure to remember which door goes where. If the configuration includes a corner cabinet, start there. Taking careful measurements, transfer the stud locations to the inside of the first cabinet. Remember to take into consideration the thickness of the cabinet sides as you measure and mark. Drill pilot holes for the cabinet screws at each stud location. One screw at the top of the cabinet for each stud and one at the bottom. Start the cabinet screws in each hole. Rest the cabinet on the ledger board and hold it in place. Keep your cordless drill handy by placing it inside of the cabinet. Our cabinet screws are self-drilling, so they find their way into the studs with no problem. Tighten the screws just enough to hold the cabinet on the wall. Do not fully tighten yet. Measure for any openings in the back of the cabinet and transfer the measurements to the cabinet back. Again, you must take into consideration the thickness of the cabinet sides when measuring and marking. Drill starter holes with a bit slightly wider than the thickness of your jigsaw blade. Cut the opening with a jigsaw and fine-toothed blade. Drill pilot holes and start screws as before, then position the adjoining cabinet in place and loosely attach it to the wall. Use hand screw clamps to hold the cabinets together at the top and the bottom. Make sure the face frames are flush at the front and even at the top and bottom. Check the front edges of the cabinets for plumb. From inside the first cabinet, drill counterbore holes through the face frame and install wood screws, attaching the cabinets to one another. Small cabinets require 2 screws. Large cabinets require 3 or more screws. Attach remaining cabinets in the same manner. Remove the temporary ledger. Check the cabinets for plumb. If necessary, use wood shims to adjust the position of the cabinets, then tighten all wall screws completely. Install the cabinet doors and adjust the hinges until the doors are straight and plumb. That's it. You've just installed a run of wall cabinets. It's time to step back and admire your work. Installing cabinets may seem like a big job, but if you know how to use a level and a drill, you have the basic skills necessary for the job. Installing base cabinets is mostly a matter of patience and attention to detail. You may already own most of the tools you'll need. An electronic stud finder helps you locate the framing members. A long standard level helps you check the cabinets for plumb. You'll also need a tape measure. Hand screw clamps are used to hold adjoining cabinets in place while you install them. You may need a rubber mallet, and you'll want a high-quality cordless drill. Of course, you'll also need base cabinets. Finally, you'll need fasteners. For our project, we're using the washer head cabinet screws provided with the cabinets for attaching the cabinets to the wall. To join the cabinet faces together, we're using Torx head hardened flathead wood screws designed for installation with a power tool. If you use regular wood screws, you should install them with a screwdriver to prevent stripping of the head. You'll also need a matching counterbore bit for the screws being used to join the cabinets together. When you're ready to install the cabinets, start by holding a long, straight 2x4 against the wall to check for high and low spots. Since we're working on new construction with a wood paneling, we know our wall is straight and flat. Next, locate and mark stud locations. Now, use a level and a long, straight 2x4 to check the floor. Mark the wall at the high point of the floor. From the floor high point, measure up the height of your base cabinets and draw a level reference line across the installation area. If the configuration includes a corner cabinet, start there. Since we're installing our cabinets on an unfinished floor, we need to attach strips to the bottom of the cabinets to get them off of the concrete and allow for the thickness of our finished floor. Most base cabinet installations will not require the use of these strips. Position the cabinet and check it for level and plumb. If necessary, drive wood shims under the base to bring the cabinet level with the line on the wall. Drill pilot holes and drive 2.5-inch cabinet screws through the pilot holes and into the wall studs. At this point, you only need to hold the cabinets in place. Do not fully tighten the screws. Repeat the process for the next cabinet in line, making sure to level the cabinet to the reference line on the wall. When installing adjoining cabinets, start by leveling the cabinet in place. Then use hand screw clamps to hold the adjoining cabinets together. Make sure the face frames are flush in the front and even at the top. Use a counterbore bit to drill through one face frame and into the other. Drive a wood screw through the frames, holding the cabinets firmly together. Check to make sure the face frames are still flush as you go, and install 2 more wood screws, spaced evenly along the face frame. Drill pilot holes and attach the cabinet to the wall loosely. To make cutouts in cabinet backs for plumbing, wiring, or heating ducts, measure and mark the opening. You can use a combination of hole saws, regular drill bits, and a jigsaw to make a nice, clean opening. Position and attach any remaining cabinets. Remember not to fully tighten the screws holding the cabinets to the walls. When all the cabinets are in place, check the entire run for level. If necessary, drive shims under the cabinets to bring up low areas. Place shims behind cabinets to fill any gaps. When the cabinets are level and plumb, tighten all the wall screws. Remove excess portions of shims by breaking them off or cutting with a utility knife. Hang the cabinet doors following manufacturer's instructions. Check the doors for plumb and adjust as necessary. Install the drawers and make sure they open and close smoothly. And that, in a nutshell, is the process of installing base cabinets. Pretty simple, wasn't it? One of the easiest, least expensive ways to change a kitchen countertop is to install a post-form laminate countertop. When it's heated, laminate is pliable enough to be formed around a one-piece countertop that incorporates an edge treatment. Many post-form countertops also include integrated backsplashes. You should be able to install a post-form countertop in an afternoon. The tools you'll need for this project include a tape measure, framing square, C-clamps, hammer, level, caulking gun, metal file, compass, adjustable wrench, belt sander, and a drill. To cut the countertop, you'll need a jigsaw with a fine-tooth standard blade and a fine-tooth downstroke blade. If the countertop has exposed ends, you'll also need a household iron. The first material you need is the countertop itself. Home centers stock post-form countertops in a limited range of colors and edge treatments. However, most stores let you order from a wider range of styles and colors. Countertops come in straight pieces ranging from 4 feet to 12 feet long. For L or U-shaped countertops, you need pieces with mitered ends and take-up bolts. The other supplies you'll need include wood shims, build-up blocks, silicone caulk, and seam sealer. You need to take rough measurements before buying the countertops, but when you're ready to install the countertop, it's time for careful calculations. First, measure the base cabinet at the wall and then at the front edge of the cabinets. Use the smaller number if the cabinet meets an appliance. Use the larger number if the countertop has an exposed end. Add 1 inch for overhang on any exposed end. If the countertop meets an appliance, subtract 1/16 of an inch to make sure there's plenty of room between the two. Use painter's tape to protect the laminate surface. Measure the countertop, then use a framing square and mark a bold cutting line that will be easy to see as you cut. Clamp a straight edge in place as a cutting guide. Then use a jigsaw to cut on the marked line. When cutting on the finished side, use a downstroke blade. When cutting from the unfinished side, use a standard blade. If the countertop has an exposed end, you'll need to finish it. Working with the countertop upside down, spread a bead of wood glue on an end cap batten and clamp it in place. Remove any excess glue. Use wire brads to hold the batten in position. Let the glue dry. The strips from end cap kits are backed with heat-activated adhesive. To attach a strip, hold it against the batten with the edges slightly overlapped. Set an iron to medium heat and press it against the strip for a few seconds to activate the adhesive. Use a damp cloth to cool the strip. Carefully smooth the edges with a metal file. Keep working until the top of the strip is flush with the edge of the countertop. If needed, large amounts of material can be quickly removed with a belt sander. With the edges finished, you're ready to position the countertop on the base cabinets. Set the countertop in place and make sure it's straight and that the drawers and doors can open and close without interference. Most walls are at least slightly uneven. To resolve this, use a compass to trace the wall outline onto the backsplash. Apply painter's tape to the top of the backsplash. Set the compass arms to match the widest gap and move the compass down the length of the wall to mark the outline onto the backsplash. Remove the countertop and use a belt sander to shape the backsplash. Put the countertop back in position and check the fit. Use a sink template or turn the sink itself upside down on the countertop and trace its outline. Make sure the sink is exactly where you want it and that it is square to the backsplash or front edge of the countertop. Mark the outline of the sink, again using painter's tape to protect the countertop surface. Remove the sink and draw a cutting line 5/8 of an inch inside the sink outline. Using a drill bit slightly larger than the width of your jigsaw blade, drill starter holes just inside the corners of the cutting line. Flip the countertop over and connect the outside edges of the starter holes with a straight edge and marker. Depending on the design of your countertop, you may have to cut some portions of the sink opening from the bottom of the countertop and other portions from the top. If the countertop includes a corner, apply a bead of seam sealer to the mitered edges. Seam sealer is available in a variety of colors to match many countertops. Smooth the bead to completely cover the exposed wood edge. Push the countertop pieces together. From under the countertop, install and tighten the take-up bolts. In some installations, this may be done with the countertop in place on the base cabinets. Tighten the bolts evenly, making sure that the mitered joint closes completely. Get some help to move the finished countertop into position. Work the seam sealer into any obvious gaps in the countertop seams. Then clean up excess seam sealer with a soft, damp cloth. Make sure the countertop is pushed tight against the wall. From under the countertop, drive wallboard screws up through each corner bracket on the base cabinets and into the countertop. Use screws that are long enough to hold the countertop securely, but not long enough to puncture the laminate surface. Apply painter's tape to the wall and the edge of the backsplash, about 1/8 of an inch from the joint. Run a bead of silicone caulk along the joint, then wet your fingertip and smooth the bead. While the caulk is still fresh, carefully pull up the tape and you'll have a perfect bead of caulk between the backsplash and the wall. That's really all there is to it. Your new countertop is installed and ready to go. Granite is one of the most popular materials available for kitchen countertops. In fact, demand for granite has increased tenfold in the last 10 years, according to the Marble Institute of America. Granite is beautiful and durable, But slabs of granite can be quite expensive, and installing them is not a job for the average do-it-yourselfer. For these reasons, granite tile is taking a larger and larger share of the market. Setting granite tile is much like setting any other type of tile. You should be able to complete a countertop project over just one weekend. You'll need several household tools, including a drill, a jigsaw, a 1/4-inch notched trowel, a drywall knife, and a rubber mallet. When it comes to cutting and shaping granite, you'll need a wet saw with a diamond blade. A wet saw uses water to cool the blade and the tile during cutting. It creates smooth, clean cuts. Diamond blades are designed to cut by grinding narrow channels through the tile. The most obvious material you need for this project is granite tile. 12 by 12-inch tiles work well and limit the number of grout lines on the countertop. Edge tile create finished edges for countertops. Most are 7 to 8 inches long. For our countertop, we're using Martel's, an edge tile with compound curved profile. In addition to the tile, you'll need 1-inch strips of plywood, 1-inch cement board screws, modified thin-set mortar, and construction adhesive. The fine joints between granite tiles require non-sanded grout. To apply the grout, you'll need a grout float, a grout sponge, a bucket, and rubber gloves. To complete the project, you'll need grout sealer and stone sealer. Start by building a base for the granite tile countertop from 3/4-inch exterior grade plywood topped with 1/2-inch cement board. Fasten the countertop foundation to the base cabinets with screws and make a cutout for the sink. Attach the cement board to the plywood with 1-inch cement board screws. Cover any seams with fiberglass mesh tape. Fill the seams with a layer of thin-set mortar. Use a drywall knife to feather out the mortar to create a smooth, flat surface. When the thin set is dry, arrange the granite tile on the base to test fit it. If the counter is L-shaped, start at the corner and work outward. If the countertop is straight, start the layout at the sink to make sure the tile on each side of the sink will be the same size. Butt the tiles together. You don't need to leave spaces between field tiles because the bevels on the edges create grout joints about 1/16 of an inch wide. Hold the martels in place and use spacers to adjust the position of the field tile to leave consistent grout lines between the martels and the field tile. Mark the tiles for cutting around the sink. Use blue painter's tape as a marking surface so your cutting lines are easy to see. Use the wet saw to cut the tile. Place the polished side up as you cut and make sure the wet saw has a continuous supply of water. When all the tiles are cut, use a 1/4-inch notched trowel to spread thin-set mortar on the cement board. Cover enough space for 4 or 5 tiles. When spreading the thin set, hold the trowel at about a 45-degree angle. Spread a thin layer of thin set on the back of the first field tile and set it in place. Hold martels in place to help make sure the field tile are square to the countertop and that everything will fit nicely once the thin set mortar dries. When you've set 4 or 5 tiles, place a 2x4 covered with carpeting over the tiles and tap it with a rubber mallet. Continue until all of the field tiles are set. Now you're ready to set the martels. They're heavy and have to be supported during installation. 1-inch strips of scrap plywood work very well for this. Measure and cut vertical supports and strips to act as battens across the front of the countertop. Adjust the battens as you go to make sure the martels will be flush with the top of the field tiles. At the corners, drive screws to connect the battens. Apply a bead of construction adhesive to the back of each martel and position it carefully. Remove excess construction adhesive, keeping the grout line bevels clean. Use a high-quality adhesive and start with a fairly heavy bead on each martel. Use spacers to make sure the gaps between martels and field tiles are uniform and wide enough so you don't squeeze out all of the construction adhesive. To make sure the edges are level, place a quarter on the tile and slowly push it across the seams. If the seams are flat, the quarter will glide across them. If not, it will wiggle or bump. If necessary, use a rubber mallet to tap down the edges of the tiles or martels. When all of the tile is set, let the thin-set cure for at least 24 hours. Mix a small batch of unsanded grout and apply it with a rubber float, forcing the grout into the tiny seams. Once the grout lines are all full of material, work the grout smooth by using the float at a 45-degree angle to the lines. This will help ensure uniform grout lines. Use a damp sponge to gently wipe away excess grout. Again, work at a 45-degree angle to prevent removal of the grout from the tiny grout lines. Wait an hour, then use a clean, dry cloth to polish away the powdery haze. When the grout is fully cured, seal the granite with natural stone sealer, following manufacturer's instructions. You'll need to seal the granite and grout periodically, but other than that, all you need to do is wipe the granite clean and enjoy it. Installing a new kitchen sink and faucet can be a very simple project depending on the products you choose. Self-rimming stainless steel sinks are reasonably priced, durable, and easy to install. Installing a single-handle faucet is an easy job that can be done in a couple of hours with only a handful of tools. The tools you need include a spud wrench or sink drain tool, an adjustable wrench, channel-type pliers, screwdrivers, and a caulk gun. You'll also need a sink, a faucet, flexible vinyl or braided steel supply tubes, silicone caulk, plumber's putty, and drain components. You may also need PVC drain fittings including 2 tail pieces, a continuous waste T-fitting, a trap arm, and a trap bend, or P-trap. These can usually be purchased as a complete kit. For this project, we're using a 20-gauge stainless steel double-bowl self-rimming sink. We're also using a single-handle faucet with a pull-out sprayer, the most popular current style for kitchen faucets. The faucet body needs to match the mounting holes in the sink deck. What you're about to see illustrates a typical installation, but specific instructions vary according to manufacturer and model. Always read and follow the manufacturer's instructions for the products you select. The whole job is easier if you install as much of the plumbing as possible before setting the sink. Start by rolling plumber's putty into a 1/4-inch rope. Form the rope around the lip of a sink flange. Place the sink flange in one of the holes in the sink. Repeat with the other sink flange, unless you will be installing a food disposer in the other sink drain. Now, assemble the base plate of the faucet. Some faucets come with self-sealing gaskets. Others will require plumber's putty or silicone caulk. Align the base plate with the holes in the sink and set it in place. Slide the faucet installation washer into position on the long threaded stud. Screw on the faucet nut and tighten securely. Then, use a narrow standard screwdriver to tighten the locking screw on the end of the nut. Tilt the sink up and tighten the wing nuts that attach the base plate for the faucet to the sink deck. Slide the sprayer hose through the base plate and sink, and attach the hose to the outlet on the bottom of the faucet. Install remaining accessories with the hardware provided and tighten all connections as required. On each sink flange, position the rubber gasket, fiber washer, and metal lock nut over the neck of the strainer. This nut is best turned with a spud wrench, but can also be gently coaxed tight with a rubber mallet and screwdriver. With these plumbing parts in place, you're ready to set the sink. Test fit the sink and adjust the opening if needed. Apply a thick bead of silicone caulk around the opening and reset the sink in place. Try not to move the sink once you get it in place so the caulk can form an unbroken seal. If the sink has mounting clips, use a screwdriver to tighten the clips from below. Be careful not to over-tighten the clips. They should just be snug. Use PVC pipe and fittings to connect the sink strainer to the waste plumbing system. Getting the geometry of the drain plumbing perfect can take some time. Be patient. If you do it right the first time, you only have to do it once. Attach the water supply tubes to the faucet inlets. Tighten the nuts to hand tight and then turn them one more half turn. Connect the cold water supply to the cold supply riser, the riser on the right as you face the sink. Connect the hot supply line to the hot supply riser. If you're installing a food disposer, now is the time to do it. Turn on the water and check all the connections for leaks. If necessary, tighten leaking connections. Garbage disposers grind food waste into small pieces that can be washed down the drain without causing clogs. They're simple machines and quite handy in busy kitchens. Installing a garbage disposer is a surprisingly easy task, especially if you're replacing a disposer of the same type. Since architect John Hames invented the garbage disposer in 1938, mothers have been warning children to keep their hands away from them. After years of being warned not to touch one, the idea of installing a garbage disposer might be more than a bit intimidating. But once you understand how a garbage disposer works, you know there's no reason for concern. For one thing, the grinding action is not created by sharp knives, but by thick, blunt-edged impellers. And for another, the impellers are a safe distance away from the drain opening. A high-quality garbage disposer has at least a half-horsepower self-reversing motor. It also has good sound insulation, a cast-iron grinding ring, and overload protection that allows the motor to be reset if it overheats. Local plumbing codes often require that disposers be plugged into a grounded GFCI protected outlet, controlled by a switch above the sink. This project requires only a few household tools. You'll need a combination tool to strip the wires on the appliance cord, a flat screwdriver, and channel-type pliers. You might also need a hacksaw or tubing cutter. Many garbage disposers do not come with a cord. In that case, you need to buy a 12-gauge appliance cord with a grounded plug. You'll also need wire connectors and plumber's putty. The first step in the installation process is connecting the cord to the disposer. Remove the plate on the bottom of the disposer. Most appliance cords come ready to install with bare wire ends and a grounding wire ring. If your cord needs to be stripped, use a combination tool to strip about half an inch of insulation from the end of each wire. Install a wire clamp in the disposer wire opening. And thread the appliance cord into the clamp and out of the wiring access. Tighten the clamp, keeping the appliance cord firmly in place. To connect a pair of wires, hold them together and fit a wire connector over the ends. Twist the connector until it's tight. Attach the green insulated wire to the green ground screw. Gently push the wires into the opening and replace the bottom plate. If you have a dishwasher, use a screwdriver to knock out the plug in the disposer's dishwasher nipple. If you're replacing an old disposer with the same make and model, you can use the old mounting assembly. If not, you'll need to install the matching mounting assembly. Start by putting a 1/4-inch bead of plumber's putty under the flange of the disposer sink sleeve. Insert the sleeve into the drain opening and slip the fiber gasket and the backup ring onto the sleeve. Place the upper mounting ring on the sleeve and slide the snap ring into its groove. Tighten the screws on the lower mounting ring until the flange is firmly seated. With the mounting assembly in place, hold the disposer against the upper mounting ring so the mounting lugs on the lower mounting ring are directly under the mounting screws. Turn the lower mounting ring clockwise until the disposer is supported by the mounting assembly. Hold the rubber washer against the discharge opening on the side of the disposer. Slide the metal flange over the end of the discharge tube. Install the screws through the metal flange and into the disposer. If you have a dishwasher, slide a hose clamp over the end of the dishwasher drain hose, then slip the hose onto the dishwasher nipple. Tighten the screw on the hose clamp to hold the hose in place. Test fit the tube and continuous waste pipe. If the discharge tube is too long, cut it with a hacksaw or tubing cutter and test fit again. Slide a slip washer and nut onto the discharge tube. Align the tube with a continuous waste pipe and then screw the nut onto the continuous waste pipe. To lock the disposer into place, insert a screwdriver or disposer wrench into a mounting lug on the lower mounting ring. Turn clockwise until the mounting ears are locked. Use channel-type pliers to tighten the drain slip nut if needed. Plug the appliance cord into the GFCI protected outlet under the sink. Turn on the water and flip the switch for the disposer. Watch for leaks. If you find any leaking connections, tighten them. When the connections are watertight, your new garbage disposer is ready to use. There's nothing more refreshing on a hot day than an ice-cold drink. And with an ice maker in your freezer, you've got a never-ending supply of fresh, frosty cubes. Today, most refrigerators come equipped with ice makers that fit inside the freezer compartment. But you may not realize that having a service provider or plumber hook up that ice maker can cost you an extra $50 to $100. In the next few minutes, we'll show you how to spend just a few minutes to save yourself that money. The inner workings of a refrigerator ice maker is a minor piece of engineering magic. With automatic shutoff valves and water jets that keep fresh water flowing into the ice maker, and fresh cubes steadily filling an ice reservoir. But making the connections really couldn't be easier. Your piece of the action is really just this simple. A thin, flexible length of copper tubing, attached at one end to a cold water supply pipe, and attached at the other end to a threaded fitting on the back of your refrigerator. The tools you need for this project include wrenches, a drill with a 3/8-inch bit, a tubing cutter, and a propane torch. You'll need supplies for soldering copper, emery cloth, soldering paste, and lead-free solder. Home centers and hardware stores sell ice maker installation kits. Most of these kits include saddle valves, which tend to leak and are rarely accepted by building codes. The connection will be far more reliable if you make it with more traditional copper fittings and a fixture shutoff valve. In our demonstrations, we'll use a combination of traditional sweat soldered fittings with a fixture shutoff valve using a compression fitting. Here's the rest of what you'll need: a small piece of copper pipe, a T-fitting, a fixture shutoff valve with a 1/4-inch threaded outlet, 2 1/4-inch compression nuts and compression rings, and a 20-foot coil of soft copper. In this project, we're going to show you how to tap into copper pipes in an unfinished basement ceiling, a very common situation. First, if the refrigerator is positioned in place, you'll need to roll it out from the wall as far as possible to give yourself working room. Go to the main shutoff valve and turn off the water. Open a tap in a utility sink or the lowest fixture in your house to let the water drain out of the pipes. Once water stops draining out, you can close this faucet. Drill a 3/8-inch hole in the floor at the back of the refrigerator area. Straighten out several feet of the coiled flexible copper tubing. Push the tubing through the hole and down toward the supply line. Leave at least 6 feet of tubing above the floor. It's time to head back to the basement. Take along your propane torch and your other soldering supplies. Your first actual plumbing step is to cut out a small section of cold water pipe and install a T-fitting. Start by cutting out a 5/8-inch segment of the cold water pipe, as near as possible to the place where you drilled down through the floor from above. A small amount of water may drain out, but don't worry about this. Clean the pipes and the inside of the T-fitting. Then apply solder paste and assemble a T-fitting with a 3-inch stub-out pipe into the cold water pipe. Solder the 3 seams in the T-fitting and let them cool. Slide the compression nut and the compression ring from the shutoff valve onto the T-fitting pipe. Apply pipe joint compound to the threads of the large end of the shutoff valve. Slide the shutoff valve onto the pipe. Then thread the compression nut onto the shutoff valve. Use 2 wrenches to tighten the compression nut fully. Don't over-tighten it though, because even rigid copper can be bent out of shape if you get too heavy-handed. Slide the 1/4-inch compression nut and compression ring onto the flexible copper tubing. Then insert the tubing into the open port on the shutoff valve. Thread the compression nut onto the valve. Then use wrenches to tighten the nut securely. Be very careful here. Tighten it only a little more securely than you would if tightening it by hand only. Turn the handle on the valve so it is tightly closed. Go back upstairs to the refrigerator area. Place the end of the 1/4-inch tubing in a 5-gallon bucket. Recruit a helper to hold it there while you go downstairs one more time. Turn on the main water supply and check the connections for leaks. If the compression fittings leak, tighten them slightly. Open the valve slightly and let a couple of gallons of water flow through the tubing to flush it out. Turn the shutoff valve securely off and, you guessed it, go back upstairs. At the back of the refrigerator, cut the tubing to length. Most plumbers leave about 6 feet of extra tubing, which will be coiled up when you move the refrigerator back into place. Slide a compression nut and compression ring onto the tubing and insert it into the 1/4-inch compression elbow on the back of your refrigerator. Tighten the compression nuts. Go back downstairs and turn on the fixture shutoff valve again. Place a couple of sheets of newspaper under the newly installed fittings. Check the paper in an hour or two. It will be wet if the fittings are leaking. This is it, the last trip up the stairs, for this project anyway. Check the connections at the back of the refrigerator. Tighten them if necessary. Push the refrigerator into place and turn on the ice maker. Congratulations! You've just installed your very own ice maker. When the ice is ready, fix yourself a cold drink. You've earned it.